Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm delighted to participate in this debate once again during Eating Disorders Awareness Week, which is a very cruel and distressing illness for both those who live with the disorder and their families, who are so often at a loss as to how they can best support a loved one experiencing this illness. And as we've heard, it can affect anyone, any age, regardless of gender, age, ethnicity, social background. And the impact of this serious mental illness affecting 1.25 million people across the UK is profound. The causes are complex and there's no quick fix to resolve this condition. And there's no doubt, as we've heard, that the gap between the onset of this illness and the start of treatment is simply too long. And whilst worried family members shrink into the grip of this illness before the eyes of loved ones, families are left feeling helpless as to understand what is happening and how best to provide the support that is so obviously needed. However, one innovation or new measure which hasn't helped the charities, and the charities and those in the front line seeking to support those living with this condition and those in danger of developing an eating disorder, is the calorie information on menus. Now, this has become mandatory in England, and whilst we all understand the good intentions behind that, it is, I believe, a misguided measure. And I know the Eating Disorder charity Beat is urging the Scottish Government not to follow suit on that for very understandable reasons. My first knowledge of the issue of eating disorders was through the story of Karen Carpenter, who died at the age of 32 in 1983 due to illness related to her eating disorder. And then Lena Zavaroni, a Scottish singer and entertainer, who died in 1999 at the age of 35 of issues surrounding her long battle with anorexia. Both of these young, beautiful and very talented women spent almost all of their short lives battling with this condition and ultimately lost their lives to it. Now, they are two very high-profile examples of deaths from eating disorder. And many people will have heard about their story and their struggle, but sadly, it's the case that for anyone who develops this condition, the mortality rate is very frighteningly high, actually. The highest mortality rate of any mental illness. And as we've heard today, it doesn't come alone. It's accompanied by other mental health conditions such as depression, self-harm and obsessive behaviour. We also have heard that eating disorders are often incorrectly and perhaps almost exclusively associated with young women. But putting stereotypes around this disorder, of course, means that very often young men or men who are living with this condition can be deterred from seeking the help that they need, or perhaps even having their difficulties and their struggles misdiagnosed. And that's why this year's eating disorder theme is Eating Disorders Awareness Week theme is eating disorders in men. In fact, 1 in 4 people with eating disorders are men, and it's important we raise awareness around that, so that people understand that it's not restricted to just women. I'm glad that the Scottish Government has made available support to Eating Disorder Charity Beat to help provide additional support and services across Scotland for those who are affected by this cruel illness. And all medical courses in Scottish universities are discussing with Beat how to deliver or are already providing further training on this complex condition about which we need to continue to develop our understanding. Those living with this condition and their families have seen this illness tighten its grip on individuals, and families already struggling with this condition during the COVID pandemic, with many of those affected left to the mercy of the awful online forums which advise those living with this condition how best to avoid food without family members noticing. And I checked in preparation, Madam Chair, for this debate, and those online forums still exist. They are still operating. How to fool your family into believing that you're actually eating when you're not. And this is simply appalling. And the fact that such sites can be hosted with apparent impunity, effectively promoting self-harm, which can and often does ultimately lead to death, is absolutely disgraceful. And I really hope when the Minister gets to her feet, I really hope that she will address this matter, because this is a very serious condition, and any websites hosting hate speech or inciting hatred of any kind, you know, that we do work to try and have those removed. These sites are equally dangerous in my view, and they really ought not to continue. And they have been in operation, to my knowledge, for at least 20 years, and there seems to be no progress in trying to tackle that. So the takeaway for me today, Madam Chair, is if the Minister can at least tackle that element of the problem, while we all work together to try and improve treatment and diagnosis for those affected.